We see Robert Peary. We remember the photographs. They showed a white man standing at the top of the world. But history rarely tells you who actually got there first. They don't tell you about the black man who navigated the ice, the man who spoke the language of survival, the man who built the sleds that crossed impossible terrain, the man who walked where no one else could, the man who reached the North Pole and was written out of the moment. His name was Matthew Alexander Henson. And this is the story of the first man to stand at the top of the earth and watch history turn its back on him. This is a story about Erasure, about a black explorer who conquered the unconquerable, only to be conquered by racism. This is Black Antiquity. Matthew Henson was born on August 8th, 1866, just 1 year after slavery officially ended in Charles County, Maryland. Freedom existed on paper. Hardship existed everywhere else. His parents were sharecroppers, working land they could never own, harvesting crops they could barely eat from. The promise of emancipation felt distant in a place where Jim Crow was tightening its grip. His parents died while he was still a child. First his mother, lost to illness and exhaustion. Then his father, broken by labor and grief. By the age of 10, Matthew Henson was alone in the world. No inheritance, no protection, no safety net. Just a black boy in a country that had barely decided he was human. He went to live with an uncle in Washington, D.C., but even there, opportunities were razor thin. He worked odd jobs, cleaning, sweeping, running errands, the kind of work that kept you alive but never let you dream. At 12 years old, he ran away to sea, not to escape responsibility, but to survive. He walked 40 miles to Baltimore, his feet blistered, his stomach empty, until he found the docks where ships kissed the horizon. He became a cabin boy aboard a merchant ship called the Katie Hines, where an unlikely mentor took notice of him. Captain Childs, a white man who saw potential where others saw only color. The ship's captain taught Matthew what no school ever would: how to read, how to write, how to do mathematics and chart courses, how to navigate by stars and instinct, how to survive harsh climates and harsher men. For 5 years, Matthew sailed the world: China, Japan, North Africa, the Philippines. He saw cultures that existed beyond American prejudice. He learned languages. He learned that the world was bigger than the box America tried to put him in. While other boys learned childhood, Matthew Henson learned the world. But when Captain Childs died, that world closed again. Matthew returned to America, and America reminded him of his place. In his 20s, Henson worked in a hat shop in Washington, D.C. It was respectable work, but small. He was a man who had sailed the world, now measuring heads for hats. Then in 1887, fate walked through the door. Robert Peary, a naval officer with wild eyes and wilder ambitions. Peary wanted one thing: to reach the North Pole, a place no human had ever definitively stood. He was looking for a valet. But when he met Matthew Henson, when he saw the intelligence, the experience, the hunger, he found something more valuable: a partner. Matthew Henson became that man. Over the next 2 decades, Henson joined Peary on multiple Arctic expeditions, enduring frostbite that turned fingers black, starvation that made men eat leather, isolation that drove others mad, and endless ice that swallowed hope. While others quit, turned back, or collapsed, Henson adapted. He learned the Inuit language fluently, speaking it better than any other explorer. He mastered sled construction, understanding how to build for survival, not just speed. He understood dog teams better than anyone, reading their moods, their limits, their loyalty. He hunted seals and polar bears when supplies ran out. He built igloos that could withstand Arctic storms. He navigated White Death where compasses spun uselessly near the magnetic pole. The expeditions were brutal. Men lost toes to frostbite, lost minds to darkness, lost hope to the endless white. But Henson never broke. The Inuit people recognized what white explorers refused to see. They had a name for him, Mahari Pahaluk, the kind one who never complains. They trusted him more than any other explorer. They taught him their ways because he respected them as equals. They knew what history would eventually admit. Matthew Henson was the best Arctic explorer America ever produced. April 6th, 1909. After months of brutal travel across ice fields and polar darkness, after 20 years of failed attempts and frozen suffering, Matthew Henson arrived at the North Pole. Not behind Robert Peary, before him. The final push had been desperate. Their team, Henson, Peary, and 4 Inuit men, raced across breaking ice. Henson led the way because he was the best navigator, the best at reading the ice, the best at keeping the dogs moving when exhaustion tried to stop them. He reached the coordinates first. Henson looked around and realized something terrifying and historic. "I was in the lead that had overshot the mark," he later wrote. "I was the first man to sit on top of the world." Think about that. A black man, born to poverty, orphaned, self-educated, written off by society, stood at the northernmost point on earth, at the literal top of the world. No fanfare, no cameras pointed at him, no ceremony, just the man, the ice, and the knowledge of what he had done. Peary arrived 45 minutes later, and history blinked, then turned away. When the expedition returned, Robert Peary claimed the glory. Newspapers trumpeted his achievement. Geographic societies awarded him medals. Presidents congratulated him. Matthew Henson was barely mentioned. When he was acknowledged at all, it was as Peary's servant, as the Negro, as a footnote to white achievement. No medals, no honors, no lectures, no fame. Scientific societies ignored him. Exploration clubs excluded him. Textbooks erased him. White America could accept the achievement, just not the man who achieved it. Peary himself contributed to the erasure. In his accounts, he diminished Henson's role, reframed his expertise as mere assistance, his leadership as simple obedience. It was strategic. A black man as an equal partner threatened the narrative. A black man as the first at the North Pole was unthinkable, so they changed the story. While Peary toured the world as a hero, while he published best-selling books and gave sold-out lectures, Matthew Henson worked as a parking garage attendant, then as a messenger, then as a clerk in the U.S. Customs House. The man who reached the top of the planet could barely earn a living. He lived in Harlem, largely forgotten, watching lesser men receive greater glory. But Henson never stopped telling his story. In 1912, he published his memoir, A Negro Explorer at the North Pole. Few read it, fewer believed it, but some did. Decades later, the truth began to surface. Explorers, historians, and the Inuit themselves confirmed what had long been whispered. Matthew Henson had been first. Matthew Henson had been essential. Without Matthew Henson, there would have been no North Pole expedition. In 1944, at the age of 77, he was finally admitted into the Explorers Club, 35 years too late. In 1954, he met President Eisenhower, who acknowledged his achievement. He died in 1955 at 88 years old, having lived long enough to see some recognition, but not nearly enough justice. In 1988, long after his death, his remains were reinterred at Arlington National Cemetery near Robert Peary's grave, not as an assistant, not as a footnote, but as what he always was, a pioneer, a navigator, a conqueror of the impossible. In 2000, National Geographic officially recognized him as a co-discoverer of the North Pole, a century late. But truth doesn't expire. They erased his name from the headlines. But the ice remembers his footsteps. They denied him credit for generations. But the world still turns on the truth. Matthew Henson didn't just survive the Arctic, he mastered it. He didn't just accompany an expedition, he led it. He didn't just reach the North Pole, he got there first. Before they wrote exploration history, we were already there. Before they planted flags, we had already conquered the impossible. Matthew Alexander Henson, first at the North Pole, first in courage, first in excellence. His story reminds us, being first means nothing if history refuses to see you, but being forgotten doesn't make you any less first. They buried his name, but they could not bury his truth. Because before they wrote history, we built it. Black Antiquity, where Black legends are remembered. Like, subscribe, and share, so their names are never buried again.